I thought what I'd do is start off by asking questions, but then, it's kind of a free-for-all. You're going to learn a lot in the late service, and there's a booklet that's been made that gives statements by each of the youth about the mission trip, some information about DOOR. But I'd like to start it off with, I was in my residency when you did the planning. How did you come up with DOOR? 1. Why not DOOR Hollywood? There is one.
There is
and
one.
3, skip that one. And the second one is, would you describe DOOR for folks? How did you guys come up with DOOR?
Well, every fall retreat we do our big sit down, talk about what we want to do for the next year, planning thing. And we all kind of agreed that we wanted something that was a lot more like hands-on work, and we also did want some education mixed in with it, and DOOR was suggested to us because it was a lot of schedule, work time. You go out every day, you do your mission work, so we kind of as a group felt that that was the place where we wanted to focus our efforts.
Okay. Who is going to wow us by giving me the DOOR acronym?
Developing opportunities for outreach and reflection.
Wow! Discovering, but I'm going to give it to you. Wow! All right, so Lynn, could you say something about the organization and what the structure of the week is like?
Well, it's basically a program that kind of provides us with different opportunities to help in the city in Denver. And so we did things like painting and working with children and lots of different kinds of work.
Okay. Yeah, Marge, would you kind of give us an idea of the people we were working with? Colorado, Denver, I mean, what kind of people were we called to serve there?
Well, it was pretty diverse. We had programs for children who were academically at least 2 or 3 years behind grade level. We had activities for kids that were actually smarter than some of us, but poor. There were elderly and disabled people who needed their homes painted. There were food shelves for the hungry. So it was, you might as well ask who weren't we there to serve, because it was pretty much the whole Denver community that had been kind of economic or social needs.
Kind of tell them what our setting was as far as living arrangements for the day.
Sure. So we got there and we were housed in the basement of a Mennonite church in the west side of Denver. So what was at one point pretty much of a ghetto, and it started to be gentrified a little bit. It didn't feel unsafe, but it was not an affluent neighborhood. And we were there with 2 other church groups, somewhat different social beliefs than our congregation, but we learned a lot about them. They learned a lot about us. So we shared space with them. It was a big room for the men and 3 smaller rooms for the women. So each of the church groups had their own room, smaller than this, right? Yeah, the men's room was maybe a little bit bigger than this, and so we're all spread out on the floor. They also did programming there, so they had a big community room that we did programming and had our meals in, and then we also did some programming in their sanctuary. And every morning we would get up and they would tell us where we were going. We had these little cards that gave us maps on how to get there, and came back at the end of the day, and they usually had something arranged for us in the evening, whether it was there or going someplace. We had one free night that we went and ate really good Mexican food.
I think that's kind of the framework of what we did. It kind of mirrors a little bit, to me it felt a little bit like our urban immersion retreats, but just ask everybody to share kind of a meaningful experience from that time.
Well, one of the kind of cool things we did one of the nights is we went to this very unique church that it was really fun, and it was in this neighborhood that was kind of like government supported housing area, and and it was this very new age hip hop church that we went to, and they do a church service every Tuesday night or whatever that it's more focused at the younger generation, and that was really fun for us. And we got to play with the people in the community and play with the kids, and then go in and hear some Jesus raps and all the kinds of things. So it was a good time.
Well, the thing I still remember most is when we went with a program called Brothers Redevelopment, which was, it housed immigrants from other countries, like refugees. And what we did was we basically picked out the basic necessities for somebody's house. And it was really, I remembered how limiting it seemed, because, it was things like we could only pick out one cup and, a couple of chairs, and I remember that.
Well, it was fun to hear your memory, because that was the most memorable for me, but because it really took me out of my comfort zone.
Yeah.
Not the music, that part was fine, but did you say that ahead of time we flyered? And that was out of my comfort zone, like walking up to people's houses and handing them flyers.
In the projects.
In the project.
Yeah.
And that was really out of my comfort zone. And what struck me is how incredibly kind and gracious the people were. Much kinder and much more gracious than I am when people come to me.
What would you say to them?
Well, it was fairly low-key, like, hey, we're just starting the neighborhood, there's going to be a big, some activities going on.
But it was
around
free
the
food. Let's focus on
that
that.
helps.
There was free food.
Free food, there's going to be some activities for kids, and that definitely helped, but then in a way that felt also like, but
Yeah, there was those two kids on the front lawn playing in a tree, and we're like, are your parents home? There's a thing going on out at the church. And we don't go to church. I said, it's free food. No, but we don't go to church. I said, well, just give this to your mom. And I think they showed up.
they did show up. Oh.
I went, it's this huge, like, imagine the Super Value warehouse out at Hopkins. It's like a building that big, full of food. And they distribute food to food shelves around the greater Denver area. And, well, some of the people's experience, some of our groups that went there, found it pretty remote from the recipients. You're just like pushing pallets around, and other of the youth talked about how they could see that they made a difference because there was like pallet loads of food going out the door. But the day that I was there, we were assigned to filling. It was called the backpack program, and so it's a place where child care facilities, after-school care facilities around the Denver area would notice that, like, the kids are stealing the ketchup packets and stuff on Friday afternoon because they figured they don't have any food in their house for the weekend. And so they decided to provide this backpack program where anybody who wanted to, they would fill up a backpack full of food for them and send them home. And I was talking with some of the people who came in to pick it up. Because again, we were distributing to people who then made up the backpacks and sent them out. And so there were a variety of different organizations that were doing this, but they would come and they would have a little order slip, and their orders would be all made up on a pallet. We would just go and get it and load up their cars or trucks or whatever it was they had. And I spent some time talking to some of the people who ran the programs that came in, and they said that they found out a lot of things as they were doing this. First, the great idea was they were going to have their own backpacks, and they were going to be marked for the backpack program, so everybody would know. And it's like the kids didn't want them. The kids didn't want to take home backpacks that announced that they were taking home free food with their families. And so then they just let them drop off their backpacks, and then they would fill them, and they would be there for the kids to pick up. But they found that they couldn't put in heavy items, like, big cans of tomato juice or something, because the kids they'd find them on the sidewalk. The kids didn't want to carry them home, they were too heavy. Right. So they figured out what the kids would carry home that would feed a family of 4 for a weekend.
I'm going to echo John off of, I have a couple of other things I wrote about in my thing in the bulletin today, but I'm going to just echo John off of the food bank in the Rockies. It was phenomenal. I mean, how huge this warehouse was. And maybe, as an adult, it's a little easier to say, boy, we're really making a difference, because I knew that was going to go to, such and such church, and the church would then be, picking it up and doing their food shelf. It was going to this organization. It was everything, literally the soup to nuts, diapers to laundry detergent to chips to juices to vegetables. Fascinating. And reclamation is where they take everything. Hey, I know Charlie was at reclamation the day I was there. I can't remember who else was. I'm talking about the Food Bank of the Rockies and that reclamation part in the afternoon that we did. They take all of the donations that would come. So take like our donations that are downstairs in the green box. So, you brought a bag of rice and you brought, a can of soup and you brought a box of cereal and, maybe Tim, you brought a couple of cans of vegetables. Whatever it is, it's all in that box. And then it all goes to this big food bank. And what often would happen with the food is Tim's can of vegetables fell on this can of rice and then also dented that box of cereal, and the food's no good because the bags are ripped. But it really made me realize how much more important my financial donation is than the actual food I might bring. And I just made a commitment to myself. I'm not taking bags of rice. Because I've been doing here, because like Holly Q. Brown asks for rice and beans and back dried, and that's what I've been bringing here for years, and I'm going to bring money from now on, because there was a lot of lost food.
Pick door because you wanted physical labor. What were the standards again?
Yeah, we wanted somewhere that we were like hands-on working, and yeah.
There was no shade where we painted. That was hard work. Did you guys feel like, generally speaking, throughout the week, you got what Henry was describing?
Oh yeah.
All right, talk about the painting a little bit, because that was interesting.
Sure, yeah. It was brutally hard work. We worked, how long were we out there? The whole day, it seemed like. Yeah, but it was a nice change of pace from last year's mission trip, which was much more based on education, which I liked as well. But it was a lot nicer to be working so hard for your service rather than learning about the situation too. So it was a cool experience.
And what did you paint?
We painted a house that was in kind of this neighborhood that was a lot of. Was it in like a neighborhood that had like a lot of low-income housing?
It was a trailer park.
Yeah, right.
So we painted a trailer home, detached garage, and a shed.
Yeah, and it was all part of this program that was helping to support low-income families. It was giving housing to these families that could apply for, housing if they couldn't afford regular stuff. So.
And Aiden, you were there because we have a picture of you with painted hands. What was the best surprise of the day after we got done painting the house and thought we were done was?
There was the shed.
And after the shed, we left the site.
Oh, and then the cleaning up of all them.
Oh, right.
Yeah, we spent like another hour and a half trying to get all the paint off of all of the brushes and then the bins that were holding the paint for us, and it was tough labor.
How about people stuff? Did you find it was a good mix of working with people and doing more indirect stuff like Marcia was describing, John, packing backpacks? Did you get enough face time with people, and what was that like for you?
My group went to 2 places where we helped with little children. One was Sunshine Academy, and the other one was Head Start, I think that was called. And I thought that was really nice because we just got to play with little kids who we not usually get a bunch of attention, and just bond with them and just kind of have a good time with them. And there's a lot different from painting the house because you just got to interact and actually see some of their situations and help out in a different way than just painting their house or something like that.
And I think we definitely got, I like how we got involved directly in the community, with the people. When we did the barbecue with the Mixer Church, that was a lot of fun, and I liked interacting with both kids and adults then. And I don't know, it really gave me insight. I got to talk with the people a lot and got to just learn what was going on with them. And it was nice to get that personal bonding experience with both kids and adults. So, yeah.
That was described as a hip-hop church in the projects. The thing is, when that first came up, I thought, I don't know if I really want to go over there. Because we're in charge of safety for 25 youpies, and it was fine. It was just But when that first came out, I don't know what the rest of the adults thought. I was like, oh, I don't know if we really want to do that. But this one?
How many people attended?
The hip hop church?
Yeah,
From the neighborhood that night?
yeah, from the neighborhood.
Yeah.
A couple hundred, I
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I worked at the Food Bank of the Rockies. My favorite place that I worked was, I think it was Lutheran Family Services. And I don't know if anybody's already talked about this, but we went to this warehouse basically, but it was a very small one. It was full of furniture and basic supplies for moving into a new house. And we had to pick out, there was a refugee coming and moving into a new little apartment, and so we had to pick out everything that was going in his house. So we picked out a mattress and we picked out silverware, but it was one of those things where it was very much a lesson in what bare minimum means, because it was like you got a fork, a knife, a plate, a bowl, a cup.
What if the guy had a friend?
I feel like I want to say that it was the best trip I've ever been on. To an adult and to a student, I just felt like everybody came together for each other, and when we had like issues we needed to work out, I just felt like everybody brought their best self to the table. There was a lot of trust and a lot of understanding from the students. I really appreciated that you guys got that as adults. We had things that we needed to take care of, like when you guys wanted to stay up all night and that whole thing. I just very much appreciated that. A lot of maturity.
Yeah. Well, and I found, I've been here 6 years now and been on, I think, 5 of the trips, or 4, and it's a hard-working group, and we get a lot of feedback on these mission trips from the people that we work for, and I've never gotten feedback to the effect of your group is dragging us down, which you'll get. If they need too much direction or if they're not getting the work done, because there's pressure on these organizations. Like that house had to be painted one day.
Right.
And ultimately, I think it was maybe it had to be painted in 2 days.
It was 3 though.
3?
It was an easy one, I like that.
Yeah, we took a break. But they were under time pressure. But one piece of feedback we consistently get is that the youth work hard. And when I first got here, it shocked me because I found these things a little intense. I thought it was going to be a little more easygoing, but
This was one where we got to see people, especially the kids, maybe not in the food warehouse, but we got to be with the kids. Everybody got to work hard, and you could just see what you were doing. And you could see that it made a difference. These organizations plan on having our work.
Well, our closing night was up on the big red rocks, like auditorium stadium thing, and I expected to climb a bunch of stairs. But
And you did.
Eventually. But we drove to this like really steep trail thing, and that really surprised me. But then everyone, there were multiple groups there from different places, like Colorado Springs and like Oklahoma, and we all helped each other up this really steep cliff. And once we got up there and climbed all the stairs, it was breathtaking, and everyone sang together, and it was cool, and it was interactive, and we all shared about our weeks, and you learned so many new things because you met other people and talked about your experiences with them, and it's a good community thing. I really like it.
I basically agree with that. And then one of the girls from Oklahoma, I think, was singing, and then Jack was playing guitar. So that kind of brought the groups together. And then we all went out for yogurt after.
There was a group of Oklahoma from a culturally and theologically very conservative place. And I said, you put up for a week with a bunch of goofy liberals from the northern urban area, and you did just fine. And they're like a relief. Oh, I'm so glad you described yourselves as goofy liberals.
There was some real tension around that during the week, though.
A couple times, yeah.
A couple times.
I don't think it hurt us a bit, though.
No, I think it was good.
It was good for us.
What was the tension?
That I would love to unpack with the youth maybe at a later time was their kids were a lot more comfortable talking about Jesus and talking about faith, I think, than our group is.
They had the shirts.
They did have shirts, but it's a cultural difference that I think it bears looking at and talking about. Because just as I hope they learned something from us, I think we learned something from them, or I hope we did. And I think it's really just the opposite, Tim, that we need more of these times to come together and learn from each other, so we don't demonize each other either way.
Yeah.
You know?
And so for me, it was I didn't feel a compulsion to change them, because that's who they were, and it's good to get the exposure. And if you view it, for me, you view it like a cross-cultural experience, it's a lot less threatening. And that's what it is. I mean, they look like us, they talk like us, but they believe quite differently than us. And can we live with them? And it was pretty tough living conditions.
After we'd been there a couple of days, we realized that none of our kids had phones or Game Boys or iPods or anything. That that's a good idea. And so they asked their kids to put them away, and
But there was the one little boy who kept playing jail and talked about his experience of his father. I guess it was his father going to jail. Can you talk a little bit about that? If that.
How many kids were we watching? Like seven or something. And then there's this one little boy who was probably like 4 or 5, and he walked in and he came right up to me and was like, "Oh, we're taking you to jail now." And so throughout the whole day he would keep having either me bring him to jail, or he would put me in jail, and then we would break out, and then we'd repeat the process over again. So it just seemed like that concept was really present in his life. So it just kind of made you think about what circumstances he's in at his home, or in any of these kids too, because he wasn't the only one playing with us, and then there were 2 or 3 other kids too. So
yeah, one thing that I took from it was it seemed like all the time these kids wanted to make guns and shoot people and stuff. I think I got shot 50 times. So that was just interesting, was how much guns are in these kids' lives. It was kind of scary. So.
Little girl got hit in the face with a big ball. I mean, the ball bounced off a tree and hit her right in the face, chipped her tooth. I mean, big time, front tooth, real visible. And she cried, but then, we sat together and talked, and then she kind of calmed down, and then she wanted to just be my friend. Well, anyway, when her mother came to pick her up, I just happened to be there, and I said, "Oh, listen, I have to tell you, we don't know how bad this chip was, because we don't remember what her tooth looked like before, but clearly it's chipped." And I was expecting this mother, and she just said, "Oh, that's okay. She really loves coming here. It's okay, really, it's okay." And I'm thinking, oh, and I'm sure you don't have dental or anything like that. It was just, I don't know, it was just sweet, because people who have a lot more money probably would still be more upset than she was.
But what would you say was the benefit of going away? Because we do ask the congregation to support us significantly on these trips, and they do. So, I mean, how do we answer a question like that instead of, well, let me just throw it to you.
I think that you are right that a lot of it goes to the backyard, but the benefit about going away is that then we help the people that are there and the people that are back.
I've seen in my time here that it lights some fires. We've had kids come back and head off to Africa as a result of what they experienced in Arizona. So then, if you talk about long-term mission, there's a domestic mission that inspired some international work. So it's great to see when a spark takes and somebody really takes independent action.
Tom, can I say something? On that note, when we were here 100 years ago, both of our kids went on mission trips. And the other day I was talking to my daughter, and she's 31 this year. And she remembers that mission trip, and she said about the church they attend now, she said, "I wish that's the one thing that's missing at the church we attend now, is that they don't have that sense of mission, and the kids don't go on mission trips." And she just remembers that as being really life-changing. I think it is for kids. Yeah.
I've read research over the years about what happens with people in this age group and how it lasts for them. And one of the things they said is, that you have to be unplugged, not just electronically, but from all your familiar surroundings and be somewhere totally new. And that's what it takes for people to have a sense of independence and creativity. If you don't ever do that, you're a different human being. And if you can, especially if you can get immersed in another culture, that will change your attitudes and your tolerance for life.